Looks like we are good. Okay, great. Well, look, here we are. It's Friday. How exciting. Friday of the free 5-day sleep school. We have gone through, hopefully, everything you need to know. So we've talked about fundamentals on Monday. We talked about settling bedtime and routines on Tuesday. We talked about night wakings on Wednesday. Yesterday, talked about daytime. And today I'm going to do the final parts I haven't talked about so far. So we'll be covering a variety of topics from nap transitions, regressions, illnesses, and then I'll be answering your questions as well, which I'm going to put on a separate video, but follow on Facebook. So yeah, it's all to get everything answered today. So thank you very much for joining this week if you've caught up. I know the sun's been out, so it's been quite tempting to be enjoying that, but it's great that I've been able to post these up on the link so that you can access it at whatever time you need, and they'll stay there for a while, so don't worry if you've not been able to catch up yet. I've had a few questions that sort of link back to stuff I've talked about already, so if I'm going to answer your question, I will answer it, but it might be worth just thinking about whether you need to go back and revisit that session so you can have the context and the answer in more detail, because it's also interlinked. But also just to let you know about the announcement about my next sleep school. So this is the paid version of this. Starts next Friday, and the discount code is active of £20 off. So you get basically so much for 75 quid. You get a questionnaire that I send you. You then send it back to me. I answer it with kind of bullet points of your sleep summary, and then put you towards my online course to to learn more about and find out the tips and tricks that you need to use for your specific situation. So it's a bespoke sleep summary. And then for 2 weeks, I'm going to be guiding you through everything in your journey. So it's a daily Q&A. There are 3 live sessions to help you out. And at the end of the 2 weeks, the aim is that you've nailed it. Hopefully this week has definitely helped you, but this is for people who haven't quite found the answer. Not that I've been holding anything back, just maybe it's not kind of something that you've really navigated through and you need a bit more support on, or if you would just like a bit more help. And it's a bit like, people describe it when they've done it before, it's a bit like having a sleep consultant for a fraction of the price, because I'm very committed to these weeks with the sleep schools, and I really want to make it work for everyone. I've had great, amazing success from people in the past, and they've really loved doing them. So please do get in touch if you want to join in. There are only 10 spots. So it's really important that you grab your space. And I'm just about to launch it out. In fact, I have launched it out to my other social media channels. So you might want to get cracking with the booking, but do let me know. Find it all over on the website, sleeptimeconsulting.co.uk. But let's talk about the extra bits, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about is nap transitions, because often we find that's a bit of a question mark that people ask about. So let's just think about what a nap transition is. Basically, it is your child being able to stay awake for longer. That's what we're talking about here, because if you've had a baby that is able to stay awake for like 2 hours, maybe that's at that kind of 4-ish month mark, maybe around that age, then by about 6 or 7 months, they're able to stay awake for longer. So whereas they might have been on like a schedule whereby they needed to sleep in that cycle, and they've been on sort of 3-ish naps, then as their awake time gets longer, it means that they don't need to sleep for 3 naps. They often only need to sleep for 2 naps because you can't fit them in the day. So a nap transition is essentially a fact of the awake times lengthening and the sleep needs of your child in the day decreasing. Not a night time, because that stays fairly static. So that's what a nap transition is. And so what we see is in terms of dropping a nap, it's about that kind of morning nap getting later, which means there's no space for that last nap of the day. And that is why we drop that last nap. It's not about dropping any of the other ones. It's about evolving the day, and all of the naps that you then evolve will get later rather than staying at the same time. Because one of the watch outs is that people put a lunchtime nap in and keep it there. But actually, when you drop down to 2 naps, it needs to be like an early afternoon nap, because you need to keep the awake time and watch out for too much awake time in the afternoon. So that's what a nap transition looks like. Now, the classic times for transitions to happen are around 6 or 7 months-ish, which is 3 to 2. 2 to 1 is somewhere around 14 months. And then dropping the nap, anyone's guess, can be any time. 2.5 years, maybe 3 years average. So basically those are averages, and you need to work out what your child is showing you, because that's what will, kind of be the guide, because no one child is the same. My children slept until they were 3.5. My sister's daughter dropped her nap at 20 months. So all of these things are very different. Just keep an eye on the tide signs that your child is showing you. And all you do is you basically start to shift your naps a bit later. You start to notice that they are not settling for the naps as well as they were before. You notice that they are struggling to perhaps to go to bed. They might be waking in the night, kind of perhaps happy because they've had too much sleep in the day. Those are all signs that you need to transition, and you start making your first nap a little bit later and later until you get into that transitional zone. I cover all of this in any of my consultations or in the online sleep course as well in much more detail, and I've got lots of handy sheets to share with you if you sign up to one of those. So the next part I wanted just to go over again, because I think it got missed a little bit in the section I used, it was early rising. So just be aware that the main cause of early rising is over tightness. That's what we often talk about, is what we see. So you want to kind of assess what's going on with your daytime sleep needs, whether you're hitting those. And then as you assess what's happening with your little one, maybe think about the first step being make bedtime earlier. That's the thing. So you're trying to avoid the tiredness levels around bedtime, cut the bedtime to be earlier, and that often helps them just to settle through. There are lots of other things you can do around early rising. You can go the opposite way. You can try and make a bedtime later to see if that pushes, but I'd always try the early bedtime first. Things like kind of topping up with a snack in case it's hunger before bedtime, either an extra feed or perhaps a bowl of porridge or something along those lines. And the last thing I'd recommend doing would be like a wake to sleep model. So this might be if your child is habitually waking at 4, you go in there at 3:45 a.m. Sorry, I know it's hard. And you'd wake them up to a near state of consciousness and then help them to go back to sleep. The idea being is that you're interrupting their sleep pattern and you're getting them to kind of sleep past when they would normally wake. So that's an early rising thing. Make sure also that your light levels are sorted. If you've got any light creeping in, it might be causing them to wake. And also think about white noise in that room as well. It can also be potentially a sign of issues with settling. So if you've got any dummy or kind of extra props that are causing them to wake, think about that. That would be something to kind of consider as part of the early rising. So my next topic is regressions. Now, regressions are one of those things that we talk about a lot because it's very easy to blame sleep issues on regressions. So I would be mindful of that as you go along your kind of assessment of sleep. The main sleep regression that we talk about is the 4-month one, and that is the sleep pattern change. And I explained that in day 1. So it's moving from a newborn sleep cycle of 30 to 35 minutes into baby and sort of toddler one of 40 to 45 minutes, and that causes issues with kind of the sleep pattern changes. There's a bit more sciencey stuff that goes on in the background, but we don't need to go into that, and it can cause their sleep to be disturbed. So that one is kind of very real. The rest of them can be sort of more defined by things like developmental changes, any movement, crawling, rolling, speaking. They can cause issues with sleep as the brain sort of processes them. We often find that children practice these things in the night as well. So you see that they are like kind of trying to roll in the sleep or trying to crawl. I had a parent who was telling me they caught their baby on completely fast asleep on all fours the other day, and they were just trying to practice crawling. So definitely kind of something that can happen. With all of these regressions, they shouldn't last more than a couple of weeks. If it's more than that, might be something else going on, or you might need to take more action. That's the kind of the key thing. So assess where you are. I'm not saying they're not real, but I wouldn't be sort of too guided by them as a definite point whereby sleep is going to fall apart. They shouldn't be the cause of bad sleep. So bear that in mind. And it's a similar kind of thought for teething and perhaps illnesses as well. Obviously, if your little one is poorly or is in pain from teething, you need to be attentive to them. And my suggestion is always to try and think about keeping your bedtime routine in a similar fashion, because we know how they are. If they need a medication, then you can give it and you know they're in a good state. And then if they need a bit more comfort in the night, then yeah, do you know what? Why not? And then when they're better, or when the tooth is cut through, because that's the sign that the teeth pain should have gone, that's when you can start to expect better sleep. You can start to think about maybe making adjustments or paying a bit more attention to it so that you get the sleep back on track. That's the key kind of thing to it all. So from extra topics, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So hopefully everything has now been covered, which is really, really exciting. So in terms of all the information I wanted to give you, it's there. You can access it, and very excited to hear any kind of feedback with it. So what we'll do now is I will just adjust something on the recording so that I can